How do you stick open strings into almost anything you're doing on the guitar? Let's talk about it and jump right in. So in today's fretboard session, we're going to take a look at how you can put open strings into all sorts of stuff in the guitar. And I think it's an awesome thing for guitar playing because it's one of the unique things about the guitar, and it has that unique sound if we can go from fretted notes to open strings. Some examples. Alright, cool. So there's a theory to how you can choose open strings and how you can get open strings stuck into anything that you're doing on the guitar. And the theory really relies around what key you're in and what the open strings are tuned to. So obviously on the guitar we can change our tuning to anything we want, and we're going to ignore that factor today. And most of the time other tunings, if we're going to retune a guitar, it's about what we can do with those open strings, which is why you do it. I'll save that for another video, but in today's video we're going to look at if we're in standard tuning, how can we come up with cool sounding chord progressions that we don't even have to think about so much the theory of what all those notes are doing in relation to the chord, but we can just instantly know that it's going to sound probably quite good. Okay, so the simple answer for how do you decide what you're going to play and what chords you can use with open strings is you have to make sure the keys you're in have those open strings in them. And if you can find out which keys have those open strings in, and you can have a list of chords in front of you from those keys that you're playing in, you can play those chords anywhere on the guitar and replace those notes or the fingers that you had fretted with just open strings and see what happens. So let's take a look at that first. So what are the notes that we have as our open strings? We have E, A, D, G, B, and E. So no sharps or flats. And fundamentally, we've got E, A, D, G, and B. Now, if we take a look at some keys, obviously C major and A minor have no sharps or flats in. So if we have the chords of C major or A minor, which are the same chords, in front of us, and we want to play in those keys, we can replace any notes under our fingers with some open notes and it'll sound good. So in C major, we've got C, D minor, E minor, F, G, A minor, B diminished, and then C major again. So I could play those chords and replace any of those notes with some of the notes from the open strings. And this is where it becomes a little bit experimental, and you get some what are quite complex sounding chords without having to think about what those chords are, without having to name them. That's kind of a theory task, and that's something I'm really passionate about and get nerdy on, is trying to name all those chords. But when you're writing and in a creative mode, you don't need to be naming everything all the time. You need to just find things that sound good sometimes. So an example, if I take this C open chord, I can move to the D minor, and I can replace any of those notes with an open chord. So instead of playing this string here, I could leave that open. E minor. So in the example I just did, I used the G string a lot to get the sound of that open note, but it doesn't have to just be the G string, it could be any of the notes that we've got under our fingers here. So if I start on the F chord, which is in C major, it's chord 4, and instead of me playing, the full F chord as a bar chord, I could just play the top two notes, or the bottom two notes, the lowest two sounding notes, and then leave these two open with a G and a B, and see what that sounds like. I went down to E there, so So I don't just have to leave one string open, I can leave multiple strings open, and I don't have to play them all in the same order. So if I'm playing, for instance, in C major still, and I'm on an F chord, instead of playing the full F chord, I could just tilt up and play it as a power chord here. And I've got, if I play the G and the B string, that sounds really cool. And then I could move down to E and do the same thing. Up to the F. And try it over the G. I think it's just song ideas galore when you start putting these open strings in. And the same idea I could use, I could change which strings I'm hearing, so I could do the F, and instead of the G and B, I could do B and E. Bit clashier. So you're going to do it and you're going to see what taste you get and what you like as you play through. So that's just using C major or A minor. So the next obvious key that we can use with this is G major or E minor. Now G major and E minor, they're the same notes, same chords, they only have an F sharp in. Now when I look at the key, all I have to go is, oh well, does that note change violate my open strings on the guitar? And the answer is no, because an F sharp, we don't have an F sharp on our guitar. So the only question I have to ask myself as to whether I can use open strings with the key that I'm playing or the chord that I'm playing in is, does the key I'm in have any notes which are going to violate the open strings that I'm using? So when we hear an F sharp, that's not going to violate it. So G major and E minor, they both have an F sharp in, and that's the only accidental they have. An accidental just means the sharp note that you would hear. So that means that in G major or E minor, all of the chords, I can use any of the open strings again. Now, if you haven't cottoned on already, you might be noticing that most of the open strings that I tend to use are the higher ones. And that's just because in my experience, those sound better, and you kind of establish the chord underneath, and then you have all these funky extra notes moving above, and it tends to sound really nice that way. So let's have a go at this in E minor this time. We'll try the minor version of this and see what that sounds like. So I'm going to start on E minor. And then it goes to F sharp diminished, G, A minor, and back to E. So I'm just using a power chord voicing here to do this, but you could use any voicing that you wanted anywhere on the guitar. So for instance, I could take Alright, cool. So that's an example of E minor, or the relative of G major. So the next key that we could use is D major or B minor. Now I'm not going to do an example of those two for you. I'll put the chords along the bottom, and if you want a full copy of those chords, just hit the link below and I'll send you a copy of all these keys that you can use with open strings pretty easily, and all the keys and chords that you can use all over the when songwriting too on the guitar. Now, the cool thing about D is, just like the first two keys, you can use this one without having to use too much thought, without any omission of strings. All of the strings will work. As we move beyond that though, you're going to require a bit of thought when it comes to the key you're in about what you can do with it. So the next key along that we could kind of use is A major. Now in A major, the accidentals are F sharp, C sharp, and now G sharp. And G sharp presents us with our first problem. So obviously we have a G string on the guitar, and so a G sharp is an issue. However, if we don't play that string, or if we fret that string but leave the top two strings open, this could be great in A major, because we've got a B string which is going to be playing a second in the scale, and we've got an E note from the E string, especially on our top two strings, which is going to be the fifth of the scale. And so both of those will sound good. So if I play an A bar chord and I leave the top two strings open, instead of me barring the whole thing, I'm just going to lift that up so we can hear those. But I'm not leaving the G string open, because that's going to sound awful. So I either need to mute it for all the chords I'm going to play, or I need to press down the right note on there. So that's chord 1. Chord 2 is B minor. So in this case, I'm not going to play the full chord because I need to make sure the G string is played correctly. So I'm just going to play the triad of B minor over these three strings, which is 9, 9, 7. And if you want, you can get your thumb on top here. Chord 2, chord 3, D major is chord 4, chord 5 is E major, chord 6 is F sharp minor, chord 7 is D sharp, D sharp diminished you avoid as much as possible, and then okay, cool. So there are more keys that you can get out using this idea of, okay, what can I use as an open string here? And sometimes you might find a key you can only use one open string in, and that's okay. So if you can get an open string in, it often sounds really, really nice. And so if you want more of those keys with open strings, like the full shebang, just hit the download and you can explore what all those are. Now, for the final bit on this video, what if you don't just want to play ideas with chords over those keys, but you want to play them in lead guitar ideas? So bands like Polyphia and other people do this really nice job of kind of blending open strings with our lead lines. And the way to do it is exactly the same thing. You want to know what key you're in, and then you can take ideas. So you can even practice scales. So I could practice my E minor scale by putting in open strings. So what if you want to play in one of the other keys? So you want to get some open strings in, you want to get some cool sounds in, and you want to do it in a key that suits your voice or the pitch you're in. Well, you could retune your guitar, but I said we weren't going to do it in this video. What you can do is use one of the most useful tools for a capo that I think exists, or useful reasons for having a capo that I think exists, which is being able to put the capo in the right place so that you can play all these chords up here and really use an expansive amount of the guitar, but get that open string sound. So let's use a key which we shouldn't be able to play in really. And that key is B flat major, or the relative of B flat major is G minor. And so that's what I need to know. So B flat major, the reason we shouldn't be able to do anything in that is because it's got both a B flat and an E flat in. And so if I play a B flat major chord, it's not the end of the world, it's a tense chord, but it doesn't sound kind of sweet and open in the way that you might want to if you're writing songs in the kind of examples that I've given. So how do I deal with that? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my B flat, which is on string 6, and then I'm going to stick the capo on its relative minor, which is 3 frets back. So relative minors of keys are always 3 frets back. So I've got my string 6 there, and I'm going to go 3 frets back. The relative minor is G. Notice how this is the same as the relationship between G and E minor, and all the other examples we did D and B minor, we did all those examples, okay? So if I want B flat, I'm going to put my capo on fret 3. Let's do it. All right, so I'm using a little Kaiser capo here, and I'm going to pop that on fret 3, and remember you want to have it as close to the fret line as possible. So now when I play my B flat, it should sound good. Cool. So that's how you can use your capo to do it in any key, and you can get playing. If you want more information on where to put the capo, I've also put it in the link below. Thanks so much for watching today. I've really enjoyed this session. I will see you next week. I do videos every Thursday and Saturday. Subscribe to join us for more. Thanks guys. Bye.